Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to Flat Earth School, the school that is around us 24/7 since the beginning of existence. I'm Mitchell from Australia. I am merely a student like the rest of us here on our beautiful Flat Earth School. Just always learning, always questioning, always just using our world around us, our reality, as our teacher. That's all we need to do. Thank you for joining me today. Hey Ryan S. Hey Explain How, FE Truth Seeker, Mojo Shop, James Mason. How are you, mate? Thanks also a lot for your donation yesterday, James Mason. I really appreciate it. Like the show says, the description in the show says, it's a quality show. I knew it was going to be raining today, so I wasn't going to be out anywhere too special. If you guys have any questions, if you guys just want to share your experiences, Globers, if you want to share your pain about things like my presentation from yesterday, which absolutely proves and shows you categorically how we physically measure the flat earth that we dwell atop. Nicole Diesel says, I'm definitely a morning person. Well, Nicole, it's a good thing it was raining today because I actually slept through my alarm for the first time in what, 40, what's this, 47? 47 shows. First time I slept through my alarm. So I only got up probably 10 minutes ago. Race to get everything set up. I thought I missed it. I thought it was over. Sometimes I'm a morning person. I'm definitely not a night person. That's for sure. True Seeker's here. True Seeker, how are you, mate?
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, good. What's up, mate?
Nothing much. If you don't mind, I'm gonna put myself off cam, if that's cool.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah, because I'm just gonna be driving around for the most part, just doing deliveries right now.
Yeah, you know what? Like that's when I was doing a podcast with Paul on the plane. That's pretty much the reason why I was doing the podcast because I actually had like a 2 hour drive to and from work. So I thought, oh well, I've got time to kill, so I may as well just do a podcast. And yeah, just drove around, did the podcast with Paul, and yeah, it's a good time to be talking and thinking, driving. I like it.
Oh no, for sure, for sure. And then if I do this on video, the connection's gonna be pretty bad. So that's why I'm just switch myself off to just audio for now.
Yeah, it's cool, man. So what can I do for you? You glober or flat earther or undecided?
No, I'm flat all the way.
You know
Flat
what's
all the
going on,
way.
man. You know what's going on.
Yeah, man. I've been a flat earther for I would say 2 years now. I was first introduced to it by some of the works of Eric Dubay, and then later on from there, I just started discovering other channels out there. Yours, Nathan Oakley's. I've been tuning into Nathan Oakley's channel for quite some time now, like a few months, and yours too. Likewise, I think it's been 2 months since I've been following your channel, and I had like a few questions. I mean, just some misconceptions that I'm still trying to the best way to kind of present it whenever I'm approached by Globers or Ball Earthers. Whenever you bring to them like definitive proof, like for example, Black Swan, um, you know, um, many of the proofs that we see, especially on Nathan Oakley show, the FE, housekeeping questions, you bring that to them, and then they come back at you and they'll say, well, okay, they won't have an answer for that, but then they'll come back at you and be like, okay, so let's look at your model, let's look at the AE map, let's look at this, how do seasons work, how does lunar eclipses work, so I was just wondering, from your experience, what would be the best way to deal with that whenever
So
somebody comes at you like that?
yeah, we first we got to identify what is going on. So the number one thing that they like to put forward for globe proof, if you will, I'm just going to mute you for a second while you're not talking. The number one thing that they put forward for globe proof is begging the question. They already assume that they're living on a globe. That's what you have to identify. So if you can tell that they're already assuming that they're on a globe when they're putting forward globe proof, you have to pull them up and say, how do you already know you're living on a globe when that's the thing you're meant to be proving? So if they're doing that, it's all about identifying how much weaseling they're doing. Because yeah, the other thing that you mentioned is reversing the burden of proof. They say things like um, to give an example of reversing the burden of proof, they're saying, well, if gravity doesn't work, then explain how things go down. You explain to me why things go down. So they have the positive claim in that argument. They have the positive claim of gravity. And if they know that their positive claim is bunk, they can't explain it, they can't show it, they can't put it through the scientific method, even though, yeah, one of the housekeeping questions is any scientific proof of gravity. And they say, well, if you think I haven't got scientific proof of gravity, what is it? You have to explain it to me. No, we are under no obligation at all to explain things to them that we have debunked. That is probably the second fallacy that you have to pick up on that they're trying to do. They're trying to reverse the burden of proof, which means they make the claim. They make the claim about something in their globe model. It could be anything. And they say, well, if you've debunked it, you have to then replace it. You have to then explain why it's happening. Another one that I get is star rotation. So it's really easy to debunk star rotation. They have the positive claim in this circumstance. They say that we see star rotation because the Earth is turning, and that is a proof for the globe. Number one, begging the question that they're ordinarily a globe on a spherical surface that they're rotating. Number two, begging the question that it is rotating. It has never ever been proven. You cannot do anything here on Earth to prove that you are rotating because you are looking at the sky. They like to use the sky as a proof for something beneath their feet that is rotating. And number three, when you debunk it, when you say that like something like a drone, like a hot air balloon, like anything that leaves the rotating reference frame of the Earth, it would be appearing to drift away as per Coriolis. That's why we see the stars rotate, because the Earth is rotating underneath the stars. Likewise with everything else, when Neil deGrasse Tyson says, when someone kicks a ball, it is aided by a third of an inch deflection. Sorry, a third of an inch deflection to the right, aided by Earth's rotation. So that would hold true for everything else. And so when we debunk that Earth is not turning, they say, well, explain why the sky has two rotational points. Explain why the sky is rotating. That is the reversal of burden of proof. We do not make I do not make a positive claim of why the sky is rotating. It just is. And that is, you have to know that that is good enough. If you don't know something, don't put a positive claim on it, because we don't know. And we may never know why the sky is rotating. Reversing the burden of proof, you just have to identify what is going on, if you know what I mean. Does that make sense, Truth Seeker?
Yeah, it makes total sense. I do agree with you. You know, we shouldn't be really not so much, I guess, begging the question or trying to explain things on our end. Let them tell their story. You know, why do they believe the Earth is a globe? Why do they believe it's a ball? What's their proof of gravity? You know, another thing I wanted to ask um, is we now notice that a lot of people are realizing the truth of flat Earth, and we're seeing so many people from different backgrounds and different walks of life, coming into flat Earth, which is a good thing. The problem is that I've seen some of the arguments that flat earthers use that I've seen not really been too effective. Like, for example, whenever you hear for example, when they talk about when they talk trying to reify a model, using the AE model to try to prove flight paths or trying to prove this and that and the other. But what are some of the arguments to stay away from, that kind of like doesn't really prove anything for the flat Earth, if that makes sense?
Yeah, so I definitely don't go into the realm of trying to claim that we have a model. We absolutely have maps. That's far different to a model. Like the AE model is is just a globe projection. So it is basically the flat Earth. All the maps that we know have been measured absolutely flat. That's how maps are made. That's how maps are produced as absolutely flat, and then they're wrapped on a spherical surface. That's an artifact. That's not. There's no curvature taken into effect when maps are physically measured and made. And so they wrap it onto a globe, and then from the globe they then squash it from the. Well, if it's a AE and azimuthal equidistant map, if it's from the north being in the center, they squash it from the north and they spread it out. And that's all the AE map is. So it is a globe projection. It has already been distorted. It is already kind of on the globe side of the evidence they're putting forward. So you're really, by using the AE model, you're stepping into their trap. They want you to use the AE model because, number one, they know you're trying to make things work on a globe projection. Number two, it is not a representation of our reality. Yeah, there are some things like emergency landings that do line up on the AE model, but it is, for me, it's a coincidence because the AE model, like I just said, is a globe projection. It is not a true representation of our world. And I don't know if we do have a true representation of our world. We definitely have locally. We definitely have a good idea of the layout of the land. But when you start zooming out in Google Earth, when you get to the cartoon like stage of when you zoom out and everything turns from an actual aerial photography view to the cartoon, that's when everything gets really distorted. That's when it goes into imagination land, and if you're in a program like Google Earth, you zoom out and then you see the cartoon ball. So you kind of have to, for me, it's really easy to argue against these points where they try to hold up, in one hand they got the globe model, in the other hand they got the AE model, and they try and compare. That's what they're doing. They're comparing the two models. That is a false dichotomy. They're saying it either works on the globe model or it either works on the flat Earth model. And if it doesn't work on the flat Earth model, then it must work on the globe model. Our model is more correct. That's a false dichotomy, just giving you two options, because there's more than two options. I don't think we actually know the full layout of the land, but it could be close with actual maps that we use. Obviously, there is very accurate navigation going on out at sea. There is accurate navigation going on throughout the land, but the actual layout of the land, I'm not sure that we actually know. So it's just another thing that sometimes we have to be comfortable with not knowing these things and not falling into the trap, because it's been put forward, the AE model. It's been it's a popular flat Earth view. If you yourself can't prove what you're trying to argue, I wouldn't be trying to put it forward as a proof. That's kind of my answer to your question.
Okay, that makes total sense. That makes sense. I mean, I don't really have much to say. I don't want to take too much of your time. I just had one more thing to ask, if that's all right with you.
Yeah, it's cool, man. Yeah, there's no one else lined up at the moment. I just wanted to say that I've got the link in the chat at the moment. Anyone wants to join me after Truth Seeker, you can stay here as long as you want, mate. There's no one here at the moment, so feel free to stick around, ask me any questions you want.
Okay. What are some books or literature would you recommend for someone who wants to look into flat Earth?
You know what? I'll pull up the. Have you got the Flat Earth, Sun, Moon, and Zodiac Clock app?
Actually, I did. I downloaded it. I don't know what happened because I got a new phone, and it was supposed to upload all my apps. So I don't know if I still have it, but yeah, I did download it.
I'm just pulling it up right now. I can't really screen share at the moment. I haven't got it on my PC. The iPad's giving it to me upside down. So if you get the Flat Earth, Sun, Moon, and Zodiac Clock app, there is a little button. It's got, yeah, it's a book button. So it's the top right button, and it has all these books, all these awesome books. I'm not sure. Yeah, you probably can't see it with his camera. So one is 16 emergency landings proving flat Earth. We just went into that. I'm not sure if that uses the AE map, but it's an interesting read. Iron Republic, Scientism Exposed, Flipping the Narrative, something about flat Earth cosmology, The Greatest Lie on Earth, Proof that our world is not a globe. There's so many books on here that is a good start. Flat Earth. Mark Sargent's got a book, Flat Earth Clues. That's a lot of people say Mark Sargent was their catalyst to looking into flat Earth. Yeah, get the Flat Earth Clues book, Nature Science and Flat Plane Cosmology. Like there's so many books on the app. Like that's why the app is so good. Like yeah, it does have an AE model. It is a useful tool to kind of get away from just looking at a globe, I guess, how things could work, but it's also got so many resources. It's got that book widget that you can press on, and what else has it got? It's got like a heap of HD pictures, high resolution, beautiful, very nice pictures that you can use. What else has it got in here? It's got links to lots of podcasts. It's actually got my podcast, my stream on there at the moment, the Flat Earth School stream, as well as what else have I got in here? The spider web. That's it. It's got Globebusters, David Weiss's interviews, Lost History of Flat Earth, response videos. They're good. They're good debunking ones. If you've seen a video against flat Earth, there's a good chance that there is a good response debunking video to that. That's on the app. Under the spider web little widget, it's got so many videos, stuff about mud floods and Tartaria, 24/7 Discord, debate clips, which is flat Earth debates. What else it got? FE movies, FE shorts, Flat Earth Man. All that stuff is on the app. So I'd always recommend people getting the app, the Flat Earth, Sun, Moon, and Zodiac Clock app. To answer your question, there's so many books on there to start, or to just to further your understanding of the world around us. Not everything in these books may be correct. I'm just trying to. This one, Zetetic Astronomy. That's a really good one. I've actually got that. That's by Samuel Rowbotham. The name might ring a bell. It is a really old book. It's like from the 1800s, and he knew all this stuff that we're going through at the moment about perspective, about gravity, about all these things. Zetetic Astronomy is I can definitely recommend. It's a good read by Samuel Rowbotham. So hopefully that answers your question, Truth Seeker.
Yeah, it definitely did. I got that book, Zetetic Astronomy, and also I think it's Zetetic Cosmology or Cosmogony by Thomas Winship. I got that one too as well. The first book that I was introduced to was the book from Eric Debay, 200 Proofs, the 200 Proofs book, and that really opened up my eyes to some of the just observable proofs around us, and then flight paths, and then water being level. But like I said, tuning into some of the flat Earth debates and to your channel, I kind of fine tuned some of my arguments that I would use when defending flat Earth. Especially the Black Swan. The Black Swan definitely fine tuned it for me. Like it's a very powerful argument. It's a very effective argument to use to disprove the geometric curve.
Yeah, absolutely. It is the #1 globe killer. That's why I made that video about it. That is come up to 22 months, I think it is ago, that we've been given the Black Swan, the logical consistency, the observation from BMLSB69. It's great collaboration by a lot of people in the flat Earth community, just to show that what we're looking at is definitely not the physical Earth curve horizon, and that is very painful for people on the globe. They're still trying to scramble to disprove the Black Swan. It is it is glorious. It's debunks their radius value, which is it's once you debunk the radius value, it's all over for the globe. They need the radius, the R value for everything. Because if you still think you're living on a globe after looking at the black swan, 1 foot observer height, 10 mile, at least 10 mile distance to the horizon, that's been nice to them. Their new radius value comes out, if you still think you're living on a globe, 264,000 miles. And that's a big difference from 3959 miles. So yeah, I agree with you. Black Swan, I love it. Truth Seeker in here twice somehow. Truth Seeker, unless there's anything else there. I've got Iron Horse on the line. He wants to ask a few questions. Do you have anything else, Truth Seeker?
Questions for me. Can you hear me? Okay, because I cannot hear you.
Sorry, mate. I was muted. My bad. But yeah,
okay.
you were joined twice somehow. I don't know how that happened. Did you have any other questions? Because yeah, we got Iron Horse on the line.
Oh no, nothing, no other questions for now. No, I do appreciate you answering some of my questions, and then I'll definitely take a look at the app. I know I downloaded it once, and I kind of explored it for a little bit, but I didn't really go too in depth with some of the other information that's there. But I will definitely take a look at that, though. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's a wealth of information. I really recommend it. It's about, if you're in America, it's about $3. I think $4.50 Australian. It's worth that bit of money for this. It's just a wealth of knowledge. Thanks for popping in, Truth Seeker. I appreciate it, mate.
Thanks, Mitchell. Thanks for everything that you do, man. Keep up the good work.
No worries, mate. See ya. All right, we've got Iron Horse. Iron Horse, how are you, mate?
Yeah, g'day, Mitchell. I'm well. How are you?
Good, mate. Good to have you on. I've seen you in the chat most days. I really appreciate it. Another fellow Aussie being in here at this early time. How are you, mate? What's going on?
Yeah, I've been up for a couple of hours actually. It's one of those nights I couldn't sleep. I went to bed early, but I'm actually writing out a bit of a spiel for a debate I intend to do tomorrow on modern day debate. It's going to be about the gravity hoax. So I won't go into that too much. I'm saving all my good juice for it. But I
Yep.
just noticed that you had Hawkins Astrophotography making some silly comments in the comment section, and I thought rather than sitting.
Is that the silly troll? I didn't realize.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Yeah, it's just saying things like angles to Polaris destroy the flat Earth, and it's like, you got to be kidding me. In fact, the angles to Polaris prove the flat Earth in the same way that the sunset debunks his argument about Polaris. Like, I mean, they tell us that the sun sets on the globe behind the horizon. Now, if we're to believe that, our horizon that we can see, it's only a few miles away. Like, you might get to a good vantage point. At the very most, you might see 100 miles on a very good day. Now, you put that to scale on the globe is 25,000 miles circumference. And so the horizon where the sun is setting behind should be at least 6,000 miles away. That's where the sun should set. But we see it setting 3 to 30 to 100 miles away at best, because that's where it gets obscured due to the fact of convergence. So when he says that Polaris disproves the flat Earth, and why can we see it 6,000 miles away at the equator, 6,000 miles from the North Pole? So the angles are exactly what you'd expect from anything that's up high, because height gives you an advantage of being able to see. And so getting further and further away from it, it will appear to get lower until eventually you get so far away from it. And because it's also the magnetic center of our flat and stationary planar Earth, all our compasses point towards it. So all the ancient navigation charts that used the fixed star to navigate by used the compass to make a circle around Polaris, and that circle is called the equator, where it disappears from view. So if he's trying to use that as an argument to disprove flat Earth, he's shot himself in the foot.
Yeah, all those arbitrary lines on the Earth, especially latitudes, they are all just a derivative of what we see in the sky. They're not physical things on the ground. Like you just said, Polaris is the basis for I think Polaris and the sun as well is the basis for the equator. I didn't think of Polaris as being the basis for the equator. I'm sure it definitely could be. I always thought of the arbitrary line of the equator being the kind of just the midway point between the sun's northern extremity and southern extremity. But I think you could be onto something there. Yeah, Polaris.
Well,
Definitely.
that's part of the beautiful story of it. I think is that not only is the equator the point where Polaris disappears from view, it's almost as though by intelligent design, that's also the path of the sun. And that's the equidistant point where both the equinoxes on both the equinox days, anywhere on the equator, where at midday the sun will not cast a shadow. So it's almost like by brilliant design that the sun's path is also the same place where we lose sight of the fixed pole star, which was always used as the thing for navigation because it's fixed, whereas the sun isn't. The sun goes around us every 24 hours. So for sailing, especially at night time, well, you need a fixed reference point, and so they measure the angle of it above the equator, or what they see as the equator, especially at sea, because that is the flattened level. So that angle above the equator tells you how far distant you are from it. And so that's how the charts were done. As you say, the latitude lines, they're measured as a particular angle of incidence. And so it's all done in circles. And how do you draw a circle? You use a compass, the same tool you use to point towards north. There's no coincidence it's called a compass. It's got the center point, where that's the fixed point in the page, and then you use the other, the pencil part of your compass to draw a circle, and the length of that circle decides your latitude line, which is measured in degrees, because that's how you measure it visually from the flat surface looking up at it. So it's all really pretty well straightforward as far as I'm concerned, as far as it comes to navigation. And because these latitude lines continually get bigger and bigger beyond the point where you can no longer see Polaris, that is why we have people like Neil deGrasse telling us, oh, it goes pear-shaped below the equator. Even though there's no up and down in space, it's actually beyond the equator or outside of it. Everything goes pear-shaped because things get bigger and they can no longer use their fixed reference to keep believing in their globe. So it's very much Polaris related, and it's just very much a great coincidence that is also the path of the sun.
That's most of the things that the globe model works out against here in reality are coincidences. They look at things here in reality and they work backwards. They build the globe model off that, and when they get to so far into the model that other things have to fit into it, that's when it goes into imagination land. That's when you need the explanations of why this happens or why we don't see things.
They just make something up to excuse it and say, like the assumption that, say, a plane flying at the same altitude, it does so because it's doing the altitude that follows the curve. But if you say, well, there is no curve in the first place, it's still going to do exactly the same thing as it seems to be doing in the first place. But you just have to assume the curve to say that it's going around the curve. It's crazy.
Like I keep saying, the first thing that they put forward is begging the question. They already know that they're living on a globe without proving it to begin with. That's what the story of Al-Biruni, how he measured the radius of the Earth. He first had to treat everything as flat to get the height of the mountain, but then through having that predisposition in his head that he already thought he was on a globe with a radius that was obtainable, he went up the top of the mountain and he thought, because he saw a dip angle to the horizon, that he must have been living on a curved surface, living on a globe.
It's crazy, isn't it? Because all he's done is he's demonstrated altitude of the mountain above sea level, nothing more. So if you're going to assume the curvature of the Earth according to one mountain, well, then that's going to be fraught with errors right from the very beginning.
Exactly. Like I showed in the presentation yesterday, everything that we measure here with angles physically on Earth, the layout of the land, they all have to have that flat baseline. That is just the fundamental premise of using all these instruments. The sextant, the total station, theodolite, it's just how everything needs to work. It needs that flat baseline.
And what they're doing, they're showing altitude. They're not showing curvature. They're showing that you are actually above that sea level. That's why it has that apparent drop. But to eyes, the eyes only look out horizontally. So it is still eye level. the theodolite is just the tool that shows altitude.
That's right. Yeah, bubble level and eye level are two different things. Yeah, the horizon does rise to eye level, but eye level isn't bubble level. You take a bubble level up the top of a mountain, and
Yeah.
according to bubble level, like if you're high enough, like I've done it in a presentation earlier in the year. I think it was like 500 meters above sea level, and yeah, that is the level, the base level line. You get a bubble level, you look out, and you're looking along that bubble level. You're forming another flat plane parallel to the sea level. So obviously
Exactly.
you're going to be looking down. That's just how it works. There is going to be a
Yeah.
dip angle from bubble level to what we call the horizon, to the sea level, where it
Exactly.
apparently,
It's especially if you're looking across the sea or a large body of water, is for a fact that that level is at its level. That's why you have altitude measurements. And so if you artificially raise a new water level, which is what a bubble level is, a spirit level, or one of those guys that uses those tubes, the U-shaped tube with the red dye in it to show actual level, that's a different level from the one which might be 550 meters below you, might be 500, might be 5,000 feet below you. That is exactly what you're doing, is you've artificially raised a water level to a place where it doesn't naturally exist. You let all that fluid out and it will flow down to that other level where it belongs. But because you've got it in a container, which is the spirit level or the tube level, you've artificially raised that to your altitude, and so you're able to use that as a tool to show what your height would appear at the distance where the horizon reaches the convergence point.
yeah, absolutely. That's another great point too. Like you can use water to find level wherever your altitude is. You go up a mountain, you have a tube, you fill it with water. If you put those two tubes facing up, so that obviously the water doesn't come out, the level of that water, no matter how far you go, no matter if you go around corners, you don't have to see it. You know that those two levels where the water is just in equilibrium. Those two levels of water absolutely in the same plane. It's absolutely flat from one level of water to the other. That is what water level is. That is one of the greatest tools that it is so simple, but it is so effective, and you can use it anywhere, any altitude.
It'll just give you your particular true level as opposed to eye level, which is a perspective thing. There was one other thing too, which I really like to just quickly mention, was when we're talking about the azimuthal equidistant map being a globe projection. I think it's not a globe projection at all. It's actually a true projection. And because we've got the latitude lines are circles, ever increasingly bigger circles around Polaris, because that's where the compasses have always pointed. So that's why the charts are always made that way. Once we get below the equator, or outside of the equator, because the word south comes from the word outwards, so outwards, southwards. So as we go further outwards to the point where Polaris is no longer visible, we've no longer got that visual reference to know our true direction. But what the navigators did still have, of course, was the magnetic compass. And the magnetic compass is still always pointing inwards towards north, which means just like spokes on a wagon wheel, as an example, then southwards, outwards is always pointing outwards. So if they presumed the globe, which is what they did as they started to get into modern navigation, back in the 1400s, 1500s, where they believed they were on a globe and stuff, as they didn't have the Suez Canal at this stage, so the sailors would still, if they wanted to reach India, they'd still have to go around the bottom of Africa. And because the whole west coast of Africa was full of pirates and everything, if you actually look at the shape of Africa on the AE map, it's to go west is actually, it sort of like has this big sort of chunk taken out of it, like Australia's bite the other way. But so if you went south, you're actually going further and further outwards, much, much, much further away from Africa than true reckoning. If you stuck to the coast and kept it within sight, then you're actually sort of going more southeast the whole time. So you're both going outwards and eastwards the whole time. But because if you're within visual range of the coast, that's when you became open to attack from pirates. So if you used your bearings, a compass, and just went true south, you're actually going miles and miles and miles out of reckoning, so far away that you'd almost be going towards South America, which they didn't go that far because they knew that India was the other way around. They had to go back up north again. And so as a result of this, in all their charts, they decided once they've reached a certain distance south, then they should have gone far enough to be able to come up again to go around the Cape of Good Hope. Now, the reason it's got that name, the Cape of Good Hope, is because you really, really needed Good Hope to get around it, because they'd gone so far towards the west by going outwards that they didn't realize, because they assumed the globe, they assumed then by going a certain distance that they've now gone around that, and so now they can start heading back up north to India, via Madagascar. But instead, they all run aground at the bottom of the west coast of Africa, and hundreds upon hundreds of ships had run aground there. That's why it got the name, the Cape of Good Hope. You really need a good hope to get around it. But if they assumed it instead of a globe, and instead decided it was an AE map, and decided they had to go a lot further eastwards before they started to head back up to Madagascar, they would have been right. So hence it's got that name, Cape of Good Hope, because very few ships successfully got around it. And hence why it probably took so long to navigate the whole southern or outer hemisphere of the planet Earth, because they didn't have their navigational aids, which they were so used to in the inner side, which was Polaris. So the distances in the oceans are probably pretty damn close to what we see on the azimuthal equidistant map.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that do work on the AE map. Things like those logs of Captain Cook going down to Antarctica, going southwards, and then making that journey around, just following the edge of Antarctica. It took him 3 years. That's what it said. What is it, 60,000 kilometers? Like that's ridiculous. Going around Antarctica on a globe, it just doesn't fit. It might fit a bit better in the AE map. It's great if you believe you've got enough information to use the AE map as proof of these things. That's fine. That's great. Power to people like you that can use this. I just don't feel like I can use it for some other thing. So I tend to steer away from it. But yeah, there are things that definitely work on the AE map, like you just said.
Yeah. I don't think it's 100% accurate by all means, because I don't think Australia is quite as wide as what it's shown on that particular projection. But if you look at it according to time zones, there's a time zone map as well based on the AE map, and it does pretty well match that Australia possibly is quite a lot bigger than we're shown on our what's the Mercator projection, or the Mercator's map, where it shows it quite compacted, as at least as high from top to bottom as it is wide, whereas I think it actually could be quite a lot wider than we're shown, because the time zones themselves do spread out the further outward you go. And it's just Australia is probably the only continent that actually gets wider further outwards, whereas both South America and Africa tend to contract a bit. So the time zones seem to work for them, so their maps look fairly accurate. But I would suggest that our 3-hour time zone from the east coast to the west coast is a pretty good accurate description that matches, say, a pizza-shaped world. The way if it's the time zones are sliced like a pizza into 24 sections, and then they're sort of segregated according to geographical and political reasons for commerce and whatnot. The time zones pretty much show that Australia possibly is quite as wide as the AE map shows it to be.
Just a correction that James Mason's put in the chat here: 60,000 nautical miles, not 60,000
miles. Yeah, I was going to say interrupt you too and say miles, but we went past it.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, like 60,000 nautical miles going around Antarctica. That's what Captain Cook said. That in his logs that he did, that is ridiculous. Doesn't work on the globe.
No, and I wouldn't necessarily agree that he came back to his starting point either. I would say that it's possibly more like 80,000 miles if he went from A to A all the way around.
Yeah, did you do the full circle? Like, there's just so much disinformation, and that's pretty much, other than Captain Cook doing it, who else has done that? Who else has gone around the perimeter of Antarctica and said, like, it took this amount of time, it was this amount of nautical miles? I don't know anyone else that actually.
Yeah, well, I don't think it's possible, because there's just too much pack ice, and they were in the days of sail ships too, And so a sail ship, you know, they're subjected to winds and stuff. So you've either got wild blizzards and storms and stuff, or you've got months of endless stillness too, where there's absolutely nothing happening. So it's one of those really, really difficult things to even contemplate doing. And the pack ice can extend out for, you know, many miles as well. So if you got stuck in it and frozen, you're just going to abort the mission. It's even if you had a big icebreaker type ship, you know, you still not going to have enough fuel to go 80,000 miles. You're just going to get so far, and you say this is a futile exercise. Look, South America's just there. It's time we headed back to land, because all the crew are just about to rebel, and, you know, whatever the word is.
Yeah, imagine like a mutiny.
That's the one.
Yeah. Atlanta's Rising says, yeah, that's an epic journey, scary stuff. Like, imagine, yeah, trying to have that much food. Like, where do you get your food from when all you see is ice for 3 years? Like, it's ridiculous. It is.
That's a lot of fish, a lot of whales, a lot of seals.
Yeah, I know. Far out. Oh man. Unless there's anything else, Iron Horse, we've got Dave Ratcliffe that wants to join and ask a few questions.
No worries, mate. It was good to chat with you finally, and I'll talk to you again sometime.
Thanks a lot for the support, Iron Horse. Always seeing in here. Great support, donations. Really appreciate it, mate. And fellow Aussie.
Yes,
love it.
You bet, mate. All right, take it easy.
Catch you, mate.
Yeah.
Dave Ratcliffe. Hope I'm pronouncing it properly. How are you, mate?
Oh, I'm good. Go fuck yourself. Bye.
Oh, good on you, Dave. Yeah, nice. Yeah, didn't want to be on camera to say that, did he? Liz Baker, how are you, mate? Yeah, Iron Horse. That was great. Iron Horse, if you're still there, I want to ask you a question about North. You can jump back in if you want, mate. Sorry, I abruptly said jump out because of that idiot that just jumped in. If you are still there, I was going to say something about North that I wanted to discuss with you. If anyone else is in the chat that wants to discuss anything, that actually wants to put some of their pain forward, if you are a Glober, other than go F yourself. Yeah, that's all the Globe has. Just ad homs. What do you got, Globe believers? We had a troll in my entire presentation yesterday, how I easily laid out how we physically measure the flat Earth. And Iron Horse, you're back in. I was just explaining how there was a troll in my stream yesterday the entire time, and when it came to the part where I put the stream link in it at the end of my presentation, where was he? He was still in the chat. I was saying, no, I left the stream going for an extra 10 minutes. The chat link was in there for at least 15 minutes, and he did not want to join. He did not want to dispute the #1 flat Earth proof. You'd think they would want to come in and do that, wouldn't they? Where are they?
Yeah.
Are they scared?
Charles are a dime a dozen, mate.
Man, the only thing I wanted to say about the stuff about North is magnetic North actually pointing to Polaris? Like, we're told, I don't know if I definitely haven't proven it for myself, but we're told, I'm not sure if it's just because they're using the globe model to work this out, is magnetic North actually under Polaris? Because I think the magnetic declination comes from these two things. They try and use Polaris as the geographical north, which is the rotation point, and magnetic north I don't think is actually directly under Polaris. I think it is a few, I'm not sure, 100 miles, wherever it is, off of Polaris. Do you know much information about those two things?
I don't know precisely, no, but I've always got my own theories about just about everything. And my theory is, well, as far as navigation is concerned, that 100 miles away from actual being directly below Polaris is probably irrelevant, because the charts themselves are done according to where magnetic north was, as opposed to visual north. And you get some people say, oh yeah, well, even Polaris wobbles, it's not perfectly fixed or stationary and whatnot. I tend to believe that it is actually fixed and it does align perfectly with magnetic north. But as I say, there could be a bit of a wobble in that. I don't know exactly what causes the magnetism. Let's say that there's this Mount Meru, which is like a great mountain of magnetite or something similar to that. So it's like the power source, but it could be something related to Polaris itself, because it seems to me that all the stars and the sun and the moon, they all rotate in the same direction around Polaris itself. And so if we're talking about an electromagnetic universe above the Earth might be sort of like one part of the electromagnet, and the universe above us, or everything that's above what I think is a firmament, that shows itself in the firmament as visible light, at all is rotating in unison, at its own speed. The sun and moon are different, and you've got the wandering stars as well. But as a rule, everything is still going around that fixed center point, which indicates electromagnetism of some kind, which I would think is a pole, a single line that goes directly into the exact North Pole and directly straight up through Polaris. And whether it's out by 100 miles or 150 miles or any sort of amount, it's really, in the scheme of things, a very insignificant amount, because Earth is still really, really massive. That's the one thing that the globers keep forgetting, because they're so used to looking at everything as a model. They seem to think 150 miles is a huge amount or something, but it's really, it's a speck of a size of a city, a large city on a map. And you zoom out from that, it becomes a speck. It's really not a significant amount. For all intents and purposes, it's as good as exactly north.
Yeah, it's just another one of those. We don't actually know. Whoever has been to the North Pole, who actually has stood directly under Polaris, 90 degrees above their head, and taken that measurement, and who has ever stood at the direct magnetic North Pole. It could be just another one of those deceptions that they say that we don't know what we don't know. I don't know anyone that has, because when you get closer to what they call the North Pole, there's a mass, like I've been doing some extensive research into what the poles are, and there's like thousands of kilometers radius around where they say the North magnetic pole is, that the compasses don't even work, that you just have to take the last known reading of north from, and then when you get closer to it, the compasses go nuts. So I don't know if
you're basically lost, aren't you? It's,
yeah.
And well, my initial research, I started looking into this sort of stuff back in my late teens. I turned 50 this year, so I've been looking at this sort of stuff for a long time. And one of the greatest books that I ever read that got me really interested, it was a Hollow Earth type book, and it was called Secret of the Ages. I've actually read the entire book on my channel, but it's a terrible, the sound quality is really terrible on it, so I'm not proud of it. But the fact is, I've got the book. It's a very obscure book. It's by a French man called Brinsley Lepore-Trench, and he was looking for evidence of aliens and Hollow Earth and all this sort of stuff. And he had a satellite picture, because they believed in these things of the day, and it's shown in the book. It's a very old paperback book, but it shows a massive hole where the North Pole should be. Now that tells me either one of two things: that they put a black circle over it to cover it, to hide whatever's there, or there is actually a hole. And this idea of this hole is that it's into the center of the Earth. And there's the stories of Admiral E. Byrd, that when he was investigating the North Pole, is that once he reached a certain distance, he lost complete control of his plane. These other beings took control of it for him, and they were very peaceful beings. They're described as the Nordics, if you're ever into the alien type of stuff. And of course, Nordics coming from the north, that describes the blonde-haired, blue-eyed Nordics, and they're very peaceful and loving people, and they allowed him to enter. They escorted him in and landed and explained a lot of things to him. And it's often even said in a lot of mythology that the origins of life, that every time a human species is brought into this world, that's where they originate from, is from this place. So, I used to always think, well, as a result of reading that book, one of the other things that came into it was that when they send plumb bobs deep into the ground to try and measure the circumference of the Earth, because they believe they live on a globe, these plumb bobs diverge. They get further apart. So the whole concave Earth, I started as a concave Earther. I thought, hang on, this is a hollow Earth, but we're on the inside of it. And the North Pole isn't an entrance to the inside, it's an exit from the inside to the outside. And so everything from the outside, that's where it's coming from. But of course, over the years, I eventually concluded that the whole concave Earth thing doesn't make much sense either, simply because we do still have sunsets. We see everything working in planes. The water level, the sunset. If it were on the inside of the Earth, as the sun went further away, we'd eventually see it going back up again. It'd have to be on the inside. It wouldn't just set due to convergence and perspective the way everything does. So everything makes sense on a stationary planar Earth. But there's a lot of mysteries. So the North Pole, I think, is still a great mystery. And perhaps it is to the interior of the Earth. Perhaps there is levels further down or higher up. Jack and the Beanstalk with the giants and everything up there. There's all sorts of things that we don't really know. But to the best of my knowledge, this is the only physical plane of existence. But there could be other realms further down. And who knows what's going on.
Exactly. We don't know what we don't know.
Yeah.
If subscribe to Iron Horse, is that YouTube channel, Iron Horse, that you've read that out on your YouTube channel, the book?
Yeah. I've created a separate playlist for it called Secret of the Ages. So it shouldn't be too hard to find. But I went to have a look at it the other day because I link to it occasionally. And I realized why it's got so many downvotes is because the audio on it is terrible. So I might have to redo it again someday.
Yeah, that sounds like a fascinating read. If you don't have that book, go to Iron Horse's channel. You've read it out from cover to cover. That's awesome, mate. Good on you.
Yeah, it had so much information that is just unknown, and a lot of it is about the giants. That was one of the biggest reasons, because I do believe in our history there has been giants. That other documentary, I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, it's called There Are No Forests on Flat Earth. Have you watched that one?
That's another massive watch that no, I haven't got around to. What can you explain no forest on Flat Earth? Some people don't know what that refers to.
Okay, yeah, I thought it was fascinating when I first seen it, and it's so gelled with me. It basically is saying that we now are basically ant size compared to humans in the past, as are our trees. So when they say there are no forests today, our trees, our biggest trees, are still like tiny saplings compared to the giant trees that once existed. So the forests that once existed were trees that are so big that the crumbling remains of them now today are what we call mountains. That's basically the gist of it. And so when you put it all together, is that this once, if the trees were so big, and I've got some very, very good evidence of massive trees, massive hexagonal columns that are, twice as long as me and twice as round as me. And the hexagonal columns that have fallen off a cliff face that can only have been the result of once living plants. That's how plant cells grow, is in that hexagonal structure. And you can see evidence of it everywhere. Australia, I think, has got some of the oldest remnants of this stuff from millions of years ago. I think the Earth is very, very old. And maybe not that old. Maybe these things petrified only a couple of 100,000 years ago. But where was I going with that? Just to do with the giants is that if anything destroyed these trees, it would have had to have been giants. And back then, if the trees were that big, the oxygen levels were possibly much, much higher as well, which allowed everything to grow much bigger. So when they discover giant bones these days, well, they just say, oh, that's dinosaurs. That's their cover story for it. But I think that the world was once much bigger, and we're living like in a giant graveyard, so to speak. Once you start seeing evidence for it, like pebbles washed up on the beach, and you look at the lines and veins and stuff in it of things that look like muscle tissue and stuff, and these are polished pebbles. Been going around for years. I think this is the stuff that was once living beings, living creatures.
That's fascinating stuff. I definitely haven't looked into it. I definitely don't have enough information to comment on that. But fascinating stuff. If I'm pretty sure they're like 5 hours long. There's a few videos on that, isn't there?
Yeah, I think the original one was possibly as much as 3 hours long, but it does hook you in. And once you start seeing the visual evidence of like mesas or mesas, I'm not sure how you pronounce them exactly, but they look exactly like a tree stump being sawn off perfectly flat. And often they still have wells springing up inside of them, which would be the capillary action of trees, where water used to flow up them in great amounts. Well, now it flows up and then it flows out again. So you've got waterfalls coming off these mesas. So there's not nearly enough rain to have these permanent waterfalls. There's very compelling evidence to say that giant trees once existed. And then the more you look into it, then obviously giants as well. And yeah, it's a fascinating look. I strongly recommend watching that and seeing I think even evidence of massive mining operations and stuff, a lot of things we might call a meteor strike, was actually an open cut mine or something. It wasn't actually a meteor strike, because how often does a meteor blow up in a perfect circle? Yeah.
Yeah, like when it's amazing that we have these stories about meteors coming and striking the Earth, having these big craters, something coming from space. Obviously, that's a problem. That nothing's coming from space because space is fake. But is there anyone on Earth right now that has actually experienced a meteor striking the Earth? Like, there's been a lot of things flying through the air, making sonic booms, shattering glass. But has anything actually struck the Earth that there's claimed to be a meteor that, while people have been around, is there any records of that? I don't think there is at the moment.
No, there's definitely people, they call them meteor hunters, and they find these obscure materials and stuff, but that could just be a result of something that was a huge amount of heat and fusion that created something that's unknown. But yeah, you can make something fairly new in a laboratory. If you combine a whole heap of different minerals together in a different way and add a lot of pressure and heat or something, you might come up with a whole new thing that's never been made before. Yeah, but it's quite possible these things happen, but I'm pretty sure it all comes from Earth if it's physical.
Absolutely. I got a couple of super chats. I did miss one before. I apologize. That was for $5. I can't see it anymore. Aaron Armstrong says, good morning. Aaron, you made a good point there. Why doesn't a flat Earth team go to the North Pole? Wouldn't it be easier than the South Pole? I honestly don't know. Well, Aaron, I would say because there are actually people in Antarctica in the south, that I'd say it's actually easier to go to the south than the north, because who is actually around the North Pole at the moment? Who has stations around the North Pole? Who is literally living near the North Pole? I'd say it's harder to get to the north than the south, because like, yeah, that's meant to be in the if you want to use the AE map, it's meant to be in the middle of the AE map. It's meant to be at the top of the globe. It's meant to be somewhere that planes fly directly over. I don't know if we actually do have much information about what's in the north. Like how Iron Horse was just describing, is there a giant hole to this? Like, is there a hollow Earth from that North Pole? Who knows? I don't have enough evidence to claim or dispute that, but I'd say that the North is actually a lot more mysterious than the South. Like, simply because we are told that we're traveling over the North when flying in planes. When we're traveling by boat, it's frozen for more than half the year, and then it supposedly defrosts for a couple of months. Who has actually traveled to the north and actually, like I said, who has stood under Polaris, got the 90-degree angle to Polaris, who has stood at the magnetic North Pole and got that reading where the magnetic North Pole is? I'd say the North is a lot more mysterious than the South. I don't think there's too much at the South. There's actually people living in Antarctica most of the year. I don't think there's many people living in the Arctic, like right up where the center of the globe is meant to be, where the center of the AE map is meant to be. That's my response to.
I could throw in 2 cents there too, mate, about the Arctic Circle. Is that they say that, well, the Arctic is ocean, whereas Antarctic is, they say it's a continent. So the Arctic Circle is just basically frozen in the winter, and so they consider it too dangerous to go too near because of the icebergs and the whole Titanics that you. But there's no terra firma up there, so basically you'd have to be on a ship. And as you say, the compasses don't work. They've lost all methods of navigation, and I'd say there's a lot of electromagnetic frequencies as well, hence the aurora borealis. So the radios and all that sort of stuff would just be completely disturbed. So, and if you look at all the ancient maps, is what I wanted to really talk about, is they all show what looks like 4 continents or 4 islands surrounding it, and they've got the 4 rivers. And this is traditionally, I think, where the term the 4 corners of the earth comes from, is that they all met at that one point, that there's the 4 corners of those islands meeting in the middle, and whatever that is in the middle, who would know? But it's something that's completely hidden from us, and planes don't actually fly over the North Pole for that very reason, for all the frequencies and stuff. They go around it, well past it, but there's a very large section that we just don't go over at all, whereas south is just outwards. There's no such thing as a South Pole. So wherever people living on all these bases somewhere around Antarctica, they're well and truly spread out. I've even seen a good map of that not so long ago. But yeah, there's really only a North Pole, and we don't go anywhere near it. So yeah, that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, yeah. There's no physical Earth other than the ice that yeah, like you say, it's too dangerous. Another thing that they say, no, it's too dangerous, we can't do that. That's when you need to be questioning those things. When in human endeavor have we said things are too dangerous? We're not doing that. Like, it obviously probably has been done. It has been kept hidden to what may have been there, may not have been there. Obviously, we're not getting the full picture of what is in the north, what is in the south. That is just places where people don't really reside. I'd say there's more people living on that south continent, the ice of the south, whatever it is, whether it be a full continent, whether it be who knows what Antarctica is, but there's people living there. There's more people living there than there are in the north ice, whatever you want to call it. That it's not a landmass, it's just ice. It's these things that we just do not know. We don't know what we don't know. There are so many mysteries to our Earth. It is fascinating, the things that we endeavor to find out, that we question these things. At the moment, it's only conjecture. It's only books from people who claim have been to these places. It's like being a child again. You really don't know what is out there. You can make up all the stories that you want, but until someone actually goes there and actually has a team that's trustworthy and that can get footage and can bring us back any evidence, because that's the thing, we're missing the evidence. Where is the evidence from the north? Where is the evidence from the south that whatever is there? It's fascinating stuff. Thank you, Iron Horse, for coming on Flat Earth School. I really appreciate it. You're pretty much my main guest here today. I really appreciate
No worries,
it.
man. That's a pleasure.
And Truth Seeker, thanks for coming on a bit before, mate. Obviously, no Globers want to come on and discuss anything because it's too painful. That presentation that I gave yesterday, it's just too painful for Globe believers to dispute. We've got a lot. I always get a lot of videos after the fact disputing what I have said. Why don't people come in on these live shows? I make it pretty public. I make it very accessible. I announce it. I announced this show 12 hours before. There's a lot of trolls that follow my work. They definitely knew that this show was coming up. I've been spamming the link to join me live. Nobody wants to join me live. No one wants to dispute the #1 flat Earth proof. You'd think someone would want to come along and say, no, Mitchell, you are wrong. But they just like to do it in the chat. They like to make videos after the fact. They say, where I'm not around to be here to say, this is how you're wrong. They don't like to do that because they are scared that they are wrong themselves. It's all projection. When you see Globe believers going on about how flat earthers are wrong, how the sextant, we're not using the sextant correctly, where we don't need a flat baseline, all these things, how they're making videos after the fact. They don't have, I haven't seen a debate between a flat earther and a globe earther about this subject, about the using the sextant, about the flat baselines. They're scared. They're running scared. This is why it's the #1 flat earth proof, because it absolutely proves the flat earth. Everything that we measure physically using what a total station, a theodolite, measuring angles, the sextant, all these things, they all need that flat baseline. And it is undisputable. Obviously, it's been months now since we've been putting out this information. No one wants to dispute it. It is very painful for the Globe believers. I do want to mention that I will have a guest on tomorrow, the Adam Meakin. He is just an awesome bloke in the community. He's one of the smartest people that I've had the pleasure of interacting with. We're going to be talking about CBD oil. He's a chemist, so we're going to go into what CBD oil is, hopefully how to make it, what its uses are. It's used for, it can be used for anything and everything. Join me live tomorrow, same time, 2 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. UK, 6 a.m. Australian. I really appreciate all the support, all the people watching these streams, everyone that signed up to Patron, people donating the PayPal link. I really appreciate it. If you like my work, there is a few links in the description of all my shows. My wife has published a book. She has illustrated and obviously the author of this book. It is beautiful. You need to see it. If you missed it, it was number 45, I think it was. It's got a picture of her on the front cover, Birthing Outside the System. That is my wife, Niala. She's very talented. If you want to purchase that book, there is a link in the description below. ABC Pregnancy. It's on her website. We do ship internationally. Yesterday, her book went international. There were 2 orders that we fulfilled yesterday internationally. I just want to shout out to my beautiful wife, Niala. She has done an excellent job. It's really exciting getting so much attention for this awesome book. So if you want to support our work, please purchase the book. That's the best way you can support what I'm doing, what she's doing. And yeah, we just try to find information that can help people, that everyday people can use in their everyday lives. Birthing outside the system is, once you realize you have that option, it becomes so empowering. And that's what the book is kind of about. It's about pregnancy. It's about being natural, about getting back to the roots of how everyone got to this world. Because when it comes down to it, we were all born, weren't we? Whether there's no other option. We all came from a mother. We all came from a woman, and it's about reclaiming that power for women, because the medical system is predominantly male run, and most of the medical terms come from male people saying that I discovered this. No, you didn't discover this. Females live this daily. Yeah, it is not. It should not be a male dominated subject. Birth. It is predominantly. Males are just there to support. That's all we're there to do for birth. We're there to support the females who are doing these birthing journeys, who need to understand that they do have options. Don't let whether it be professionals, friends, family, people who don't know the full picture, please do your own research when it comes to birth. There is options other than going to a hospital. That's what we see in the movies. That's what we see on TV. That's what we're told. Oh, you're in labor, quick, get to the hospital. Yeah, if that is the mainstream narrative, you need to question it. And this book really helps you open your eyes to those options. ABC Pregnancy, it is in the link of the description. Iron Horse, thank you a lot for being here today. Truth Seeker as well. Yeah, great chat. Thank you. Really appreciate it, mate. As I said, I'm going to have Adam Meakin on tomorrow. We're going to be talking about a bit of flat earth, a bit of CBD oil, just about how we can help ourselves in everyday life. It's Adam Meakin. He's also a mathematician. He's one of the smartest guys I said I've had the pleasure of dealing with. So please stick around for that tomorrow. If you feel like the world turns on you, turn to Flat Earth School. It is around us 24/7 since the beginning of existence. I'm Mitchell from Australia, just a student like you guys, just exploring our beautiful flat earth around you. Until next time, spread the love. Go out in our beautiful Flat Earth School. Go and discover some things. Get out in nature. Get out of imagination land. Love to all. Thank you for being here. See you guys.